And I'm make sure I've got some sound there. Looks like I do. And here's the situation. If anybody should come today over here to the over to the classroom, what you'll have to do is log into Canvas, and then if you're over here in the classroom, somehow the overhead's not working. And so what you'll need to do is to log into Canvas and then go over to the invitation to see the meeting. I am getting it started a little bit early, and I understand that. So that's that shouldn't be any big deal. But thank goodness we've got this at least so everybody can see. And those of you who are out there will be able to hear me. And those in here can hear my voice as well too. And then I'll save, and then I'm going to record this anyway. So we should be in good shape. So it's about 12:21. We're a little about 10 minutes early, and you can always pop back to the. You can always go back to the where you need to be. Now, let me go over here, and today is going to be. This is Thursday, so I want to be over at A. Okay. Here we are, and this is I was over in you'll see in the recording I went over to section B. Instead of creating section A as Monday, Wednesday, and B as Tuesday, Thursday, they put them in the exact opposite, which at times I find myself over there going, wait a minute. Now, this is BISS 1123A, and as I said, you know, we've got some problems over here. We don't have the overhead is not working, at least not with my machine. So if you are going to come over here today, you'll just need to go into the Canvas room and you'll hear my voice. If you're out there, you're going to hear my voice anyway because I'm doing the recording, okay? And at that first part, I was over in section B, but we're over here. Glad to see you here, and you really haven't missed anything. If you have, you can always go back and take a look. But I was on one of those monumental trips where I went over to section B, and just to tell you guys the story, when they did this numbering of these sections, instead of doing A as Monday, Wednesday, and then B as Tuesday, Thursday, they did just the opposite. So I found myself going from one page to the other. And so you'll see a couple of minutes or so of me over in 1123B, but today is 1123A. Now I have we have the recording from Tuesday the 6th, and there was a problem, and so I did I re-recorded it. Is either you guys or yesterday, I can't remember. But I have a supplemental video here, okay, for today, which is the 8th, on how to build interactive dashboards. And there's no test, exam, or anything on this. I just wanted you to see, okay, where we go to from what we've done in terms of what we've learned with the class, okay? So that's the important thing. And I'm going to go down here, and again, there's that recording. Here's an extra credit opportunity, and you can try as many times as you want to the end of the semester to come up with this. I will never tell you if you got it right, but I'll for sure tell you got it wrong. Now, the other thing I want to mention are virtual hours yesterday. That kind of got whacked. But again, you can always email me and I'll try to answer questions for you. So these are the announcements. But again, this supplemental video is exactly what it says. It's about, I think, 35 or 40 minutes long. So you can watch it at your leisure or not. But it basically says, here's where we would go if we were going to continue on. And this course is nothing about anything except Excel. Okay? Fair enough. Now, I want to also come down to the, we're going to come down to the Come down to the modules. I've had a week with a lot of technical glitches and problems. So it's been interesting to say the least. And I'm going to scroll down here. We're in week number 5. Okay. Now, you have the following things that are due. XLS 7 is due today. You should have already uploaded it because we've already done it. As you know, we're working ahead. We're working ahead in Excel, because I know when we get to Access, we'll need to slow down. Then the break-even and EOQ quiz, that's today. Sometimes you see multiple due dates. You need to click on that and take a look, because sometimes I have to make accommodations. That's what that's about there. But for everyone, unless you've had that created for you for some reason, it's due today at 5 p.m. Okay, and that break-even and EOQ quiz is drawn from Badger Jams, which is case 6. Okay, and that we dealt with break-even analysis. And then case 7, hardware nuts, where we dealt with economic order quantity. Now you'll also, and we'll go back over here for just a second, okay? You'll also note that in this welcome area, the welcome area here is also a whole bunch of resources. And down here you're going to see, anytime you're in doubt about what's going to be on a quiz or exam, you can always scroll down here to this file right here, okay? And it tells you all of the resource. It tells you what's due, what is covered in each exam, okay? So we're good to go there. Now we'll go back down to week 5, which is where we're at. And so you have XLS 7, you should have already uploaded it. The break-even and EOQ quiz, that's due at 5 p.m. And then the text from the Stephen Few, the chapter 6 of the Stephen Few text, that's the big one. Show me the numbers. That's the one that that quiz is due also at 5 p.m. Okay, now we're at that point of the course. And let me go one more time just to remind all of us. Up here in the announcements, as you've become accustomed to the announcements, I'll put just general announcements, but I also put a link to the recordings, okay? And then you see this supplemental video. Again, this is about, I think it's 35 minutes, something like that. But this is to show you the kinds of stuff we would be learning or working on if we were just exclusively working on Excel. And it might not be a bad idea for you just to browse through it, because it gives you a sense of what you're going to be seeing at work in terms of dashboards. And we covered that a little bit in MIS and a little bit in data admin, but certainly you're going to be seeing dashboards when you go out to work. Now, let's go back down and let me find my way here. And it's been a week just of one kind of technological disaster after the other. All righty, let's go back to the modules. Okay. And in the event something happens, I should say this too, in the event that something happens, you know, something, the computer dies, whatever, it freezes up, I will always just have to redo it, and I'll redo it and post it. I think I had to do that in section B. But nonetheless, we'll go down here to module 5, okay? And module 5 today, we've already done 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We're going to work on, and 12. We're going to work on case number 13, which is Pacific Trading. And Pacific Trading is over at page 119 in the Solve It textbook, in the Solve It 6.0 text. Now, if you look at page 119, you're going to see it says spreadsheet case 12. That's a misprint. It's actually 13. Okay? Now, as I had mentioned before, this case, as well as case 12, which was Truman Assembly, are moving us and getting us ready to look at using databases, because in both of that, in that case, Truman Assembly, and certainly in today's case, we're going to be using Excel like a database. Now, it's not designed to do that, but we can if we need to. And it's the same with Access. There are ways in Access to do computational work, but the heavy duty lifting, it really ought to be done by a spreadsheet application, okay? But we're going to see the nearest thing to kind of a hybrid or a combination of the two of them today when we work with the with pivot tables. Over in page 119, they begin to give us the business about the company and the usual thing, what file we'll work with and what we're going to be doing. And before I go there, I want to go into the files section of Canvas. Okay, I want to show everybody something that will help put this into perspective. As you've heard me say numerous times, let databases be databases, and let spreadsheets be spreadsheet. And the holy grail for all of these vendors is an application that does both. Now, we're coming to that point, and there are a few of them out there that are getting close, but nothing that's really all that robust or easy to use at this point, but we're getting there. But we're going to see, I think, if you're to ask me in Microsoft Excel, by the way, I want to mention this again, keep trying on the 50 points, my favorite function. You'll know it when you see it. It is so obvious, and so look through and keep guessing. If you don't get it, I'll say no, guess again, and that's open, up until the final day of class. So 50 big points are out there, and maybe you'll see some Excel functions and learn a little bit about them. Nonetheless, I want to show you the analytical cube, okay? And you say, what in the world is that? Well, let's open this, and I'm going to download it for us for just a minute. What we've been doing so far is what we would call flat sheet analysis. That is, we've been working where, you'll remember, like with I think it was with Badger Jams, we looked at the units sold versus the revenue brought in. We looked at, I think it's Morgan Wagner, where we looked at that we used the linear trend. We did the linear trend analysis, and so we've assumed that we've been working on basically an XY kind of plane. Y being the the vertical axis, X being the horizontal axis, and each of those, they're known as the abscissa and the ordinate. And if you want to be cool, get yourself a t-shirt and say, are you abscissa or an ordinate? And you'll prove you're the smartest kids at OVU. Anyway, all that being said, I'm going to take this and scoot it up just a hair so we can see it. When we work with a database, the advantages of a database are that it allows us to take data and query that data or get it in a multidimensional way, okay? So this assumes that data can be layered, okay? And we can pull out chunks of it or slices of it and get a unique result. Now, this starts with a thing we call dimensions. And you'll see if you look up there the product, and then on the left-hand side, you'll see the thing that says retailer. And then you see date. Those are what we call, I'm going to leave date out for a minute because it's kind of a hybrid, but product and retailer, those are what we call dimensions, factors, characteristics, or variables. Okay? There's it's some type of a phenomena that we fit. If we're doing we would also call this the independent variable. So we've got products, and then we have the different types of products listed there. In database parlance, those are called dimensions. Then we come down and we see the retailers, and we see the names of these different stores. So right now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 retailers. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 types of products, I've got 20 types of analyses I could do at a minimum, okay? Now the date, which you see, is a hybrid. Dates, as we've seen, can be used like numbers. I can say, okay, what's the difference? You remember when we did the receivables, we used a starting date and then said, okay, how far behind are the people in paying us? But a date is also like a dimension. I can say the first quarter of 2018, the fourth quarter of 2017. And so it's kind of a hybrid. Then we come to a final piece of the analytical cube, and this is what makes databases so powerful and what makes them the foundation for business intelligence, the foundation for dashboards, okay? And it's our ability to query the data that are stored. Remember, there's a hierarchy. Data is just data. Information is data that I can use for decision making, okay? Knowledge is data that's replicable and easily used and applied, and wisdom is something that's more profound, an understanding, and that I can use for a long-term basis. One would be, for example, if I'm in the extractive minerals business, I know that business is up and down. The price of oil fluctuates tremendously about every 5 years. Same thing with other kinds of extractive products. Okay, now that being said, you could see if you, and we'll pop this open just a little bit more. And you could see, for example, how much revenue was generated by sports stores through October protections in total, okay? So we're looking at two things. We're looking at sports stores, okay, outdoor protections, and we're getting a total. So now we're working with what we call a measure, okay? And I could say, okay, well, how much is it in total? Well, when? What year, what quarter, what week, what day. Then we see another, how much revenue was generated in total in 2005. So you can see this when people talk about slice and dicing data. This is what we're talking about. And you can literally just start to take, imagine these are all just sets of records, and we can use queries to pull those records and produce new results. Okay? Well, I'm going to close this off for just a second, and we're going to work with a pivot table, which is the closest thing of the tools that are in Microsoft Excel. There are two of them I've found over my career to be the most useful. The first one is the pivot table, which we're going to take a look at today, and the second is the solver, which allows us to build optimization models. I'd say probably the third would be the random simulation functions that let me simulate sets of numbers. You see, one of the things we're getting you prepared for is to come to the point that you can build a model of a company, or you can build a model of a product, and you can build a model of a marketing campaign, etc., simulate it, see what it's going to look like, what the types of results might be, and be prepared for the range of responses that you'll get. Because the truth is, when you make a decision, okay, it's the outcomes are along a continuum, ending up with really, really bad, or really, really good, or kind of in the middle. And what we want to look for is the really, really bad stuff. So let's go down here to the Solve It 6.0 files, okay? And we want to get the student files, and we want to download those, okay? And I'm going to come over here to Pacific Q. Now, what I like to do is once I download, and I use a Chrome browser, is I like to just take that and throw it on my desktop, okay? So I know it's there. Now remember, and I will go through this every time, you need to get the file downloaded into your native environment so you can upload it when you're finished. Otherwise, you're dealing with a system file, and you're going to have problems with it. So I'm going to also rename this and it's Pacific Q, and I'm going to name it Pacific Q Harmon Keith. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and open this up, and there's Cardinal Buddy, as you see. He's smiling at you, glad to be. He's in class today too. He can't speak or write or read or anything, but he probably knows as much about business problem analysis as any other human alive except me. But let's take a look here at our friends from Pacific Trading. Now, if you look at the textbook, okay, as again in these cases, they give us some information about the company, blah, blah, blah. And if you look at page 119, these folks sell organic fruits and vegetables. And they've got some different customers like Trader Joe's and Whole Foods, and they're growing quickly, and they want to have some kind of control, okay, over their business, and they're trying to find some way to analyze how they're doing and maybe some decisions that they want to make, and that's really covered there on page 119. And they have, of course, our antagonist, Maria. Now, at the bottom of page 119, and the second paragraph up, it says they frequently ask Maria Galambos, I was supposed to pronounce it. I apologize if I botched it. What she considers off-the-wall questions, and she spends hours rearranging her spreadsheets. One of the things that you'll find is that when companies figure out, gee, I can query data, I can look at data in a lot of different ways. And you think of that cube, think of the analytical cube, think of Rubik's Cube. I turn it and I get different pictures and views. And so they get query happy, okay? And they want to ask all kinds of crazy things. And so, as you've heard me say before, what I say to any company or anybody I ever work with, what are the 5 things you need to know today to be sustainable? Well, she's kind of dealing with that, but she wants to also build some discipline types of queries. If you go over to page 120, okay, we'll see we've got the file, okay, and we're going to answer some of these questions. Now, let's talk about this file for a moment, just as a file, as an Excel spreadsheet file, and we have the title, yeah, and we have some documentation information. Then we come down to, and we don't see any output, we just see input. And what this is really a table. It's a data table, okay? And this is what a data table would look like if you went over to a database and you had what we call a fact table. It just lists facts. Facts are collections of records. Notice we have a dimension of a date, okay? We have the item, that's a dimension, variable, characteristic, independent variable. We have city. Then we have sales. Sales is a measure. It's something we can count, multiply, divide, add, etc. Then we have seller. That's a dimension. And then we have the store type. That's a dimension. One of the things we'll notice, and again, this is our segue into working with databases, is that tables tend to be longer than they are wide, okay? They tend to be tall. In other words, a lot more records than you have dimensions, okay? And that's just the nature of that beast. Now, I realize, when we start talking about databases, some of it will seem foreign, and don't worry about that. It will come to you pretty quickly. And I can tell you for a fact, everybody that leaves a business school knows how to do spreadsheets, but few of them will have the background with databases that you're going to have when we're through with you. And that's going to give you a decided competitive advantage over folks who are out there looking for a job. And your ability to understand and have a comfort level is important. Databases are now, because we can do such high-speed computing, because we have the cloud, because we have all this stuff called unstructured data out there, databases have become now as important as spreadsheets were several years, 10, 15 years ago when they first came on the scene. Well, let's take our cursor here, okay, and let's see what we've got. We've got, we started A7, and I think this is going to take us all the way down to F73 or F75. Okay, and so we have that F75, and that's our data table. Okay, it's just a set of records. Now, I'm going to come up here on the machine on the toolbar, and I'm going to click Insert. And then to the left, I'm going to see Pivot Table, and I'm going to click that. And I'm going to get the Create Pivot Table dialog box. Let's talk about what we're looking at here. Okay, it's going to say choose the data that you want to analyze and select a table or a range. And the range of data we'd highlighted. And what this says is this is from the Pacific Q spreadsheet. Okay, and the following cells, A7 through F75. And notice that when you look at that, at the cell references, they're absolute cell references. So we're declaring that array of data, okay, as our table or range of data. Now you come down below and it says use an external data source. One of the nice things about these products is they are interoperable. In other words, could I go back, could I click on that and go get data from another Excel file? Sure. Could I get them from another, could get them from a server? Sure. Could I get them from another access file? Yep. All of the above. So they're designed to work like that. And when you go to work, you'll be doing this, you just won't know it because the software will be intuitive and a lot of the stuff going on underneath will be happening. The only way I know to kind of explain to you what's happening with the tools that you're using out there is think about when you drive your car, okay? And you're going, and you're going 65, 70, 75 miles an hour. You kind of feel it, but you don't. But if you have a flat tire and you're on the side of the road, you'll see people blow by you and it's like it's a jet plane. Because vehicles have been engineered to reduce the sense of speed because people get panicky if they think things are going too fast. So cars have been engineered for people to drive them somewhere between maximally about 75 to 85 miles an hour because they figure most people, at least in this country, are speeders, which they are. And they have all kinds of stupidity factors built in, like traction, opinions to keep you from flipping the thing over, especially if you own a pickup truck. So there's a lot engineered because most of us are maybe a little bit unsafe, or we make mistakes. So you just don't get that sensation. Now, if you stand on the side of the road and your car's broke down and you got a flat tire, I guarantee you go, boy, this is a dangerous place because, and you really feel it. Well, it's the same thing with the software. There's a lot going on under here, but it's to make it as easy and for us because our job is not to write software. Our job is to make good decisions. So we're going to put this data that we've selected into a new worksheet, okay? And we'll click OK. And now we're over in sheet number 2, okay? Now you should be seeing two things. On the left is the pivot table report builder, okay? The pivot table report output, okay? And then on the right-hand side, you should see pivot table fields, okay? Let's take a look at them for a minute, and you'll see there's the data field, the item, the city, the sales, the seller, and the store type, okay? And if we wanted to go grab some more tables, if we've got those, we could try to do that, but we're going to stick with what we've got here. Now, when you come down here into the second half of the pivot table fields, you're going to see the following thing: filters. Now I'm going clockwise. Columns, values, and rows. Think of it like this: a filter is a frame, okay? Columns and rows are the sides of a picture. The values are what we fill in to make the picture. Values are our measures, things we can count, etc. And the beauty of the pivot table is it's so intuitive and it's so easy to use that, and we call it a pivot table because of this idea of taking this data cube and kind of turn it, twist it, look at it different ways. So let's look at what kinds of questions or issues we've got. We come down to page 120, they've got 4 tasks for us, okay? And they say, here's one that I don't know, I lost some sleep over this one last night, and you may have too. During what month are peaches most in demand in Eugene? Okay, well, let's talk about that. We're looking at a city, so I'm going to take the city, check it, and then I'm going to come over here and make it a filter, and watch what will happen. Now I'm going to take that out, and you see the city, and then click on the little add button, and you'll see we have the 4 cities they serve: Bend, Eugene, Portland, and Salem. If I want to select multiple items, I can. So I'm okay with that. So far, so good. All right. Now notice when I click outside of the pivot table that little plate there, it disappears. When I click back inside, it's there. So I chose city. Now I want to do the item because I'm interested in peaches. I think it's peaches. And so I'm going to put item, I'm going to try it in rows and see what it looks like first. I don't know. Well, if I were going to do this to write the code for it, that'd be tricky. But all I'm going to do is just drag and drop. I'm going to put it in the columns. Okay. So I'm going to take the item and move it here. And I'm okay with that. That's not too bad. So I put the items in a column. And let's see, and then I need to put the dates. Now I know why I did, because the dates are going to really take up a lot of space. So I'll put the dates down in the rows. Okay. So far I have the big frame. That's the city. Then I've drilled down to the type of the items. Okay. And then I've drilled down also to the dates. And now I want to get the sales or the measures. So I'm going to get the sales. I'll click on it. And here I am. Now this shows me by date everything I sold, all the items, and how much it came to. Okay. Now just for some visual acuity, I'm going to take my cursor. I come all the way down there. Let's see, I want to do that again. My mouse is jumpy. And I'm going to make that, I'll probably just start from there. And I'm going to make that all borders. I'll come down here. I'll make it all borders. And I'll finish it up. Okay, and that just helps me see the data a little bit. Now, over on the far right in column H, I've got the grand total. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to click on cell H5, and I'm going to come all the way down here, okay, down to H52, and I'm going to make that bold, okay? So I see it better. Plus, I'm going to go ahead and make it dollars. Okay? And that way I know it's dollars. So I've got units. Well, those are dollars inside there, but I know they're dollars. And down here in the grand totals, I'm going to make those on row 54. I'm going to make those dollars as well. Okay? So if you were to say, well, okay, how much did you sell in apples? Well, there's the figure. Okay, by date, all cities. I've got the same for figs, for grapes, for pears, for plums. All right, I've got the grand totals. So now I can do a little bit of a drill down if I care to, and I'm going to click back over here. All right, and I'm going to come over here, and I want to look at the cities. Okay, so I'm clicking here, and I'm going to add the city filter. I think I might have eliminated it by accident. So I'm going to click city and put it in the filters. I don't know what I did to it, but something. There's the city. Now, these are all of the cities, but we're interested in one city, Eugene. So I'm going to click on all, and I'm going to get Eugene. Now I have everything I sold in Eugene. Now I'm interested in a particular date, all right, and that's September. So I can do this. I'll just click up here. And I want to find out, I'm going to do a visual inspection first, and I want to see, well, this is still too crowded. Let's get rid of everything except peaches. So come down to the column label, deselect everything, and then just select peaches. You see how we keep drilling down and we keep simplifying, and the data set gets smaller and smaller. That's what we do typically with this type of work, is we take a big set of data and just extract it down to what we're after. It's not a lot different than somebody carving something or somebody doing a sculpture, or same principle. So we're down to the peaches that are sold in Eugene. And just to help us with some visual acuity on this, I'm going to highlight these cells here. And I'm going to bring this up to about 18. And then I'm going to move them over so we can see them. Okay. The columns. And let's see, we'll do that. Now we could look, and it's not too hard. I can look and visually see that September, I had one sale in September, but it's larger than anything else, okay? But if we have what we have there are sales of peaches in March, April, June, and September. So, but what I would do, and this might be, you know, numerous records for a given month. So as you would figure I'm going to do, I'm going to take the grand total and I'm going to highlight it, and I'm going to use conditional formatting, and I'm going to do a gradient fill with these bars so I can see which bar is the biggest. Okay, now it's pretty obvious. Then the answer to my question then is we sell the most of our peaches in the month of September. Okay, now this says sheet number 2 that we're on, if I'm not mistaken, and so I'm going to rename that, excuse me, and I'm going to call it task 1. You say, why are you calling it task 1? If you're asking me that question, reconsider a few things. It's task 1. So we've done task 1. During what month are peaches most in demand in Eugene? And it's simple. It's September. And so we've solved that mystery. Okay? That's pretty simple stuff to do. And that's one of those queries, they're easy to get to. But you notice the process we did. Okay? We built the big frame. That is, and we'll go back. I'll click here and I'll show you. We built the big frame, and that's the cities. Then we filled in the columns and the rows. Okay, and then we put in the values. Now, I had to do a little bit of strategize a little bit, because when I'm looking here at the data, okay, I have so many rows there that to put them across is going to be a killer. So I went ahead and put the items across, and others on the x-axis, and put the data and put the date on the y-axis. So we've answered that question. Well, let's go back to our friend Pacific Q, back to that tab, and we have a second and kind of more touchy question that we're given, and it says, who is the least productive salesperson? And it says, from the information provided by the pivot table, can you suggest any reasons for this person's performance? This one is a little trickier because it's a little more complex. Well, I'm going to click Insert, Pivot Table, and I still have from A7 down to F75, and I'm going to put it in a new worksheet. Okay, and this is sheet number 3. And before I do anything else, I'm going to rename this task 2. Because that's what I'm working on. Okay, now let's look at this for just a minute. So click inside the pivot table builder, and there are a number of ways that we can kind of go at this. And I think what I'm going to do, first of all, let's put the seller, okay, in the filter. Okay, then let's take sales, and of course that would be in the values. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the item. I'm not going to be so concerned about date. I'm going to take the item and put it into the columns, and then I'm going to put city. I take city and put it into the rows. Now, if I don't think it's pretty enough, I can take the city and flip it up to columns and put the items in the rows. And I think I may just do that. I'll take city and put it over here. That looks a little better. And then let's go ahead and bold all and put the borders. And then the grand totals here, I'm going to highlight them, bold them, excuse me. I'm going to make them into dollars. Same thing below here in the grand totals, okay, and put them into dollars. And then I'm going to have to size them up a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to also come in here and increase the font. Okay, and let's make that font. Let's take it up to 16. And then we can move this over some more. And there we are. Now, this shows us all the salespeople, okay, which is fine. Now, if we want to see one person, we can go person by person. And again, this would just be me. I'm going to take Baker and look at Baker first. And that will show me the items, okay, per city that Baker has in sales. Now, if I want to, I can copy and paste this, okay, and drop it into another worksheet and just click it and just insert the values, okay. I could take a screenshot or just copy this and throw it into a Word doc. It doesn't matter. But I've got Baker. I'm going to look at Baker and we see, okay. And then I'm going to come and I'm going to take a look at, I'll go back to all. And I'm going to look at Berryman. Berryman higher than Baker so far. And then instead of that, and I'll click all to clear it each time. And I'm going to look at Flanner. Flanner looks better than Baker so far. And I'm going to do all, so I do this just to clear it all out each time. And then I'm going to see I've got Pochet, I guess would be how you pronounce it. Yeah, pretty good. And we'll get rid of all of that. And then we'll do Salat. Now, if we want, we can choose multiple items. And so I'm going to clear this with all. And I'm going to start with, I'm going to choose Baker and choose multiple items, click that. And I'm going to choose Baker and Berryman. Let's see if it distinguishes them or just gives us some, it just gives us some multiple tabs. So I'm going to go back here. Let's just choose them all. So this is giving us a decent look, but not exactly what I want, because I want to see all the salespeople. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the seller, and and again, this is the beauty of the pivot table. I can mess with this thing to just see the best look that I get, okay? And I'm going to put the seller over in columns. That doesn't look so good. I'm going to put the seller in rows. I don't like that very much, y'all. And I'm going to take the seller and put it above the item. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take items and get rid of them. Okay. And then I have the city. Okay. Now I'm close to what this is where I want to be. I have this, the cities are in the column. I have the sales of the seller in the rows, and obviously I have this the sum of sales and the values. Now I can do a little bit of comparison. And again, what I'll do is I'll come in here and the grand totals all will let's see, what do I want to do with those for a minute. I think with the grand total, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to highlight cells F5 to F9, and I'm going to do some conditional formatting, and I'm going to use the color scales, green, yellow, red, and take a look. Okay? This tells us Baker grand total has a problem. Now I'm gonna do an inspection again, and let's do Salem. Okay, and we'll do the same conditional formatting, and we're gonna do Portland. And we're always looking for one of the two, a patch of green or a patch of red. And now this helps us take a look at these colors, and as you look left to right, you're going to see obviously that Baker's even if Baker in terms of by city, bad news. Okay, Baker's and you know what you can do further, for example, with these values, okay, like the sum of sales, click on that, and you can put value field settings, and you can go and show the values, okay, like for example, as a percent of the column total. Okay, and you know percentages are deceptive, okay, because it always depends on the base. So you can look at that and you can see, you know, Baker, not so good. Okay, so we'll go back there. Now we're looking at Baker in terms of cities. So let's try something else. Baker's not doing well in any city? So let's click in here and let's clear all of that out, the conditional formatting. So we'll highlight those cells. Then we'll come down, we'll get clear the rules from the selected cells. Boom. And now I'm going to click back in here, and this is the value of this tool. Right now we know Baker sells less than anybody. We also know that Baker sells less than anybody just about everywhere except Eugene. Baker does very well in Eugene compared to well, Berryman does better, but that's it. No, wait a minute. No. Salat does much better. So Baker's at the bottom. And since I haven't learned how to do digitization yet, let's just make those dollars. Now we can see it. In Bend, Baker's last. Baker's next to last in Eugene. In Portland, Baker didn't have any sales. And in Salem, it's dismal. So Baker, the location's not good, okay? Why? Well, it may be Baker's the new person, and these other folks have been there a while, and you know they just will prefer to buy from Slot or whoever else is tops there. Now I'm going to take instead of the cities for the column, I'm going to take that off, and I'm going to put the items. All right, now I'll have to scroll this over just a hair. This is a little bit too big, so I want to, that's okay. I can just scroll across on this. And we'll look again. We know Baker's at top. Baker doesn't do anything with plums. Okay, with pears. So Baker definitely has got a pretty spotty performance in terms of products. Okay. And if it will help us, and it will with the visual acuity here, I'm going to take the item and put it under here. I'll take seller and put it back over in the columns. There we are. That helps us see a little better maybe. Now, let's put seller back in the rows. I'll put the items back in the column. You say, oh, you keep doing this. Yeah, that's the beauty of the pivot table. I can get to where I want to see it. And part of this is I scaled up the font. So if I scale the font back, why, it'd be a lot better. Now, we've looked at that. Now, there's another variable that we need to look at. And instead of items, let's take items off of there. Okay. And let's put store type. So we're going to check store type and put it down in the columns. And let's see how Baker does with these different types of outlets. Let's look at delis, and we could do not so hot. And I don't have to leave it like that. I can just hover over it and get the view. Same thing for, let's see about farm stands. Not good. Groceries, I can look at that and tell you what we're going to see. Now, sometimes this is not the fault of that salesperson. This may be that these folks just simply, they have some people who've been with them maybe a little longer who have better routes. Okay, so would it be, could I go to the level of analysis where I look at seller and then the columns, for example, I have store type and item? Sure. Okay, or dates, or any, as much as you wanted to drill down, because if you're going to make a decision about this person, okay, in terms of their employment, obviously you're not getting the output, and so you have to. And now again, this is where your judgment comes in. The information, the data here will only take you so far, and you've heard me talk about business wisdom. Okay, this is where the wisdom part comes in. If you understand each of these types of clientele, okay, and the products you're selling, you may be able to get a handle on what's happening with Baker. Maybe Baker's not well trained. Baker doesn't relate. Maybe other people have better sales territories or routes. And those are the kinds of things you've got to take a look at. And those are the kinds of things that you wouldn't know unless you've been in that business for a while. Okay. So I'm just kind of leave this, but to show you kind of a more complex kind of issue, but a lot of ways that you could look at it. And the thing is, you may see something that kind of, the light bulb goes off at this stage of the game. I'm almost thinking it's probably territory. Who do they serve? Well, let's go back over to, and probably training and territory, both, some combination of the two of them. So we've got task number 2. Let's click back on Pacific Hue, and we're going to look at another thorny issue, maybe an even bigger one, and that is the task 3. And this is page 120. It says sales to restaurants entail more labor than sales to other venues. Is it worthwhile to continue marketing to restaurants? And they give us a hint to have the total show as percent of column, and then select field settings, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, let's do this. Okay, I want to click insert pivot table. You see how easy this is. This is why I love this tool, because I can do so much The tool really, of all the tools other than the optimizer in Excel, this one can bring you to the point where you can get the data and you can think about what you're looking at. So we'll click OK. And this is going to be, I'm going to rename this, okay, task 3. Okay. Now, they're saying, let's pull out of restaurants because they entail a lot of work. My first question would be is, okay, what are the implications for us in terms of our sales? So I'm going to, obviously, I'm going to get sales. I'm going to put it in the values. Okay. And then I'm going to take the cities and put it in the columns. Okay. And then I'm going to take store types and put them in the rows. You say, why did you do that? Well, I don't want to get too technical about it, but with Excel, with pivot tables, okay, to the extent possible, we want to put what we call the dependent variable, the variable of measure, in the y-axis, which would be the rows. And then we want to put the any independent variable, and though you remember that from that case 6, I'm going to put them in the x-axis. In this case, the x-axis is over here, the columns. Okay, it's just taking that and inverting it so that it's an L inverted upwards. Now I've got Delhi, and I've got each one of these. Now I'm going to let's see. I want to do one more thing, and I don't know if I want to mess with that. Let's put. Oh, there's not another relevant variable there I want to mess with. So let's take and then we'll size this up and click home, and let's make that about a 14, maybe a 16, and then we'll scrunch these out so we can see them and do some thinking about them. Okay. Now, also, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and that area there from the array from A5 over to F9, I'm going to go ahead and put in borders. And then in the grand totals, I'm going to make those dollars, and I'm going to bold them up. And then the grand totals at the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and turn them into dollars. And this for purposes of space. Now, we can look and see, first of all, each of the cities, and we can start to look at things like the percentage of funds that we spend, okay? Pardon me, the revenues generated in total, and we can put and we can put each of the cities in perspective, okay? And I can divide these to get a percentage, all right? And I'm going to click on this for just a minute, and I'm going to click on that, and a value field setting, and I'm going to change it to show value as a percent of grand total, a percent of row total. This helps us put it in perspective in terms of the percentage contributed by each city, and the percentage contributed, again, we're working across, working left to right, the percentage contributed by each city, and then by each outlet per city, okay? And if we look at restaurants, then we can put this into perspective, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to come here, all right? And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use a conditional formatting, and I'm going to use the color scales. They say, are there some different, do I have to do it exactly like this? No. the key thing to remember is, okay, first of all, values are easy. That's the stuff, the numbers. You put them in values. What I try to do is kind of work clockwise. I try to find something that will fit. I'll show you. I try to find something that will fit as a filter. And then what I think is the variable of interest, what I'm interested in, the dependent variable, if you will. I try to throw that in the rows, and then the independent variable over in the columns. But I work through these. And again, the beauty of pivot table is it's designed to let you move these around in such a way that you see something that makes sense. Now let's look at this for just a moment. And we see that restaurants, you know, range from, in terms of the percentage, range from not much to nearly half of our sales in a given city. So not good. So I'm going to go ahead and I want to come back, and I want to show the values as a sum. Okay, and I'm going to get rid of these. So I'm just going to go ahead and try back. Let's see. Let me find my back out. There we go. Now, when you say, why did you take it from percentages? Because I want you to understand that percentages are one thing, dollars and cents are another. So I don't want to just say, well, you know, here's what you're going to have to replace if you're going to get rid of restaurants. $28,000. You're going to have to come up with another 28 grand, okay, to even maintain your current revenue picture. And what you don't know are some things. And again, this is part of this. When you say, what do you mean by business wisdom, Dr. Harmon? Okay, here's one of them. A person who's in this business, or any business, would say, is it possible that a restaurant, okay, is a place where people see your product on display in its finished form? In other words, the restaurant uses your stuff and people go, man, that's some of the best organic, best fruit I've ever had. Okay, and who knows? It might be that you want to say, okay, I might be able to increase some sales with some branding. Who knows? Okay, but you got to come up with 28 grand, and you're going to take a significant chunk out of the Hyde of Salem and Portland both, because each of these, that's 12 grand out of 44 grand. So you're talking about 3%, 4%. Same thing over here. So is it wise to get rid of restaurants because they're a little more labor intensive? I don't know. Now, again, you could go in and you could add, and we're going to make this a little more complex. We're going to add the item. And I'm going to take the item and I'm going to try it over here in the columns, first of all, right into the city. And let's see how that looks. No, it didn't tell me much. It just jumbles things. Let's put it under store type. I've got something I can look at here. What this shows me is each store and the item and the city. Now I may have something that's sufficiently structured for me to make a decision. And let's roll down here to our friends, the restaurants, and plums. Okay. So, wow. If we, for example, if we decide to get rid of restaurants, we're taking a sizable chunk out of just about everybody. So we've got some thinking to do, whether or not it would be wise. Now, I'm going to take the item out for just a second, and we're back to this. And I'm going to ask myself a question. Is there another candidate that might be more difficult to work with? I don't know. But for my money, I'd say, okay, if you think, okay, that you can get an additional 28 grand if you pull out of restaurants, where are you going to get it? Now, here's another thing that's part of that wisdom part. Think about this. Restaurants buy from you, okay? And they also buy from organic markets. Some of them may, the smaller ones, and some of the smaller ones may buy from grocery stores or farm stands. You may not be the direct supplier. These may be folks who buy some of these restaurants may be buying from your farm stands and or the groceries. You just don't know, or maybe an organic market. So if they may be buying your product, you just don't know it. It ends up downstream, okay? Because you're a supplier, and when you're a supplier, you always got to be thinking about downstream and who are the hidden customers. And who are the hidden customers are usually the people that buy stuff and use your stuff, but they just didn't buy it from you directly. And that's a supply chain issue. So that's task number 3, okay? And then we come to a final one, okay? And we're going to click Insert, Pivot Table, okay? I'll click OK. And I'm over here, and they want us to look at they may be growing too fast and spread over too wide an area. Choose a city where they would close down or decrease their marketing. Okay, well, okay, let's start with that. And I'm going to take of course, obviously, I'm going to start with the sales and put that in values. Okay, and I'm going to take the city and I'm going to put it over here in the rows. And let's see, I've got that, and let me think for a moment. I think I'm gonna go with store type and put it over in the columns, and then build this up so I can see it a little bit better. And let's go home, and we'll make that up like that, 14 or 16, maybe an 18. Okay. Now, what we're talking about is, okay, what city am I going to pull out of? All right. And that's a significant decision, and it's one we better be making with a lot of trepidation. I'm going to go ahead and let's size these all out, and then go ahead and put in the borders, and then do some thinking about them. Now, I've got the grand total, okay, for each of the cities. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll bold those up. And I'm going to make them dollars. All right. And then I can do the same thing down here. Now I can build these into percentages, that type of thing. Now we'll do this, scroll it out. And so I can start to look at these, and I'm going to put this in the perspective of task number 3. And we're going to call this task 4. I'm going to rename it task number 4. Because that's what it is, task 4. Now, I have to do some hard thinking about this because I'm thinking about pulling out of a city. Now, the problem is they're all fairly even in terms of how much they sell. So if I decide to pull out of one of these cities, you know, that's a big chunk of money, and I better be able to make it up. Now, slowing down the advertising, okay, might be the better alternative. And as you see the wording of the question, we're closing down or decreasing marketing would have the least negative impact. Okay. And so if I were in their shoes and I were trying to make a decision, I would probably say this: I'm going to pull back on the advertising in Bend. Okay. And you say, why? Now just highlight that. So why would you do that? Well, pretty simple. First of all, it has low it has a low figure for restaurants, which is the most labor intensive. So I could say, okay, I'm going to do a little more work, just pure labor work with the restaurants, and then pull back some of my advertising expenditures because I may have the brand awareness that is helpful for me. And notice in Bend sells a lot to markets and stands, okay? Nearly as much as they do the grocery. They do pretty well with the delis. So, they really don't need to do too much more with the delis. So I would say probably Bend is the place because it's also the largest set of revenue. So if I lose 10% of revenue there, okay, I'm gonna lose $5,600. I'm not gonna kill myself. Okay, and that would be pretty much. Again, you might look at this and see something different. The beauty of this is when you get the right people in the room and they're talking about the data and they're laid out in some ways, or you could say, well, let's look at it another way. Okay, turn the cube and play with it. Hey, that's when it's a really valuable tool for you to use. Okay, now what I see is time is we're at 1:31. And we've gone quite a ways here, and we started early, so we've done our 75 minutes of instruction. I have a supplemental there for you as well. And as you can see, pivot tables have a lot of their versatility. They're easy to use. They're easy to manipulate numbers and look at. You can see why it's such a fantastic tool to use. In fact, there are all kinds of books out there about how to use these and tools, and I would encourage you to take a look at them. Okay, folks, well, that's pretty much it. And before we get out of here, I want to take a couple of minutes or so to talk about where, well, let me do this first of all. You want to save your file on your desktop. And make sure it's on your desktop. Okay. And then you want to upload it into Upload XLS 12 here, because that's what we just got through doing. Okay. And so we've done XLS 12, and we'll look at the modules. And there it is. And I will probably upload the file I just finished here as an insurance policy for somebody who may have a disaster, who knows what. Okay. Now there's also another file that's done from XLS 12 as well. And I put these over here so you can play with them or take a look at them or if something happens. So that will pretty much do it, folks. I appreciate the time, so I'm going to stop the share and stop the recording, and we'll be done, and I will see everybody online on Tuesday.